mighty, strong, and no one compares to you. So I'll put trust in you, Lord. So I'll put trust in you, Lord. Holy and worthy, and no one compares to you. You are holy and worthy, and no one compares to you. So I put my trust in you, Lord. So I'll put my trust in you, Lord.
You're listening to Launch with Kim
and Dr. Newt
on Praise.fm.
Hello,
Welcome everyone to what are we, Launch
with Kim
and Dr. Newt. I had to get my sang on.
Oh gosh,
Y'all
so
laughing
funny.
at me because I can't sing. That's all
That
right.
is not why. It's just the fact that you just got to get your little song in. But I'm for it. I'm all for it. You go on and sing yourself happy, honey. Hello, I see some people coming in. Hi, D and B and Joseph Dodson. Hi. There's Frank Quinton. There's Diane Hawkins. There's Elder Pastor Dr. Walitra. There's Llewellyn Coleman. Hello, you guys. Thank you for joining us. I see there's others. Thank you for joining us tonight. As you guys know, we are on this. Dominic Moody. What he said. We are on this launch. And we're talking about your marriages and all marriages. Yes. And right now we focused. Well, last week we focused on the ABCs.
Right.
Of issues that could occur in your relationship and what you can do to identify some of those things. So we kind of made that clear last week. This week we're going to go a little bit further into that conversation and just kind of pinpoint a certain area, more like the verbal and mental abuse.
Right.
You must see somebody who knows he got excited or something.
No, I just figured out how to get my watch party started.
Let's get this party started. Get the watch party started.
I'm a little slow, but that's all right. We got it on.
Hi, Amy and Leroy and Kai. Hi.
Yeah. I am seeing some old school. Lonnie Harris from back in my New J days.
Oh, that's Tracy's brother. Hi,
Right. How you doing?
Look at Ali.
AB's on there. Rosunda, how are you doing?
Bro.
Deborah Knowles, some people. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you for tuning in.
Again, this is
today.
Launch. This is Launch with Kim and Dr. Newt.
You didn't sing it with Kim
I said it first.
Dr.
Newt.
Now y'all got to hear him again. I'm trying to help him out because he want to sing it every time, so I'm trying to be there for him.
I'll be trying to tell her, let's get the jingle back up.
I know. We're going to work on it.
But she's taking her time because, she don't want me to make her sound bad. She can sing and I can't sing.
No, that is not the reason. So anyway, guys, thank you again for tuning in. We ask that you share. We really are focusing on marriages. I don't know if you guys have heard, but there are so many more petitions for divorces right now during this pandemic. And among our Asian
Right.
cultures as well, which
Right.
is really
Very, very
unusual.
strange. Very strange.
So when people are shut in a house and there's sicknesses, illnesses in the household, if it's not stress,
Yeah.
related, you're worrying about whether somebody's going to be well or finances aren't going right, or it could simply be you don't really know each other and you're
that's what I
getting
was,
to know.
That's why I was laughing. You stuck with each other
You
now.
know,
You
you're
got to
getting
deal
to
with the
know
real.
each other.
Got to deal with the real deal. You know.
Yeah, so it's
And it should be a beautiful thing. Should be a beautiful thing, you know.
Mhm.
So we've been focusing on marriages for the last few weeks, and we're going to
Yeah.
keep focusing until we
indeed.
feel like we're not supposed to.
Mhm.
So to kind of start off today, because for the sake of time, you guys, we're going to quickly review
Yeah,
some of the
yeah,
things we've
that's
been talking about for the last couple of weeks. So we started talking about the position and purpose of male man and female man,
Mhm.
and to sum it all up, we came up with how Adam and Eve, their positions kind of got
Mhm.
juxtapositioned or switched around, so that they were abnormally using their position or each
Mhm.
other's purpose in their
Which
life.
also means abusing
Right, so-
because the purpose of
Right,
that person.
Right. So whenever you don't know the purpose of a thing,
Mhm.
you're going to abnormally use it or abuse that
Right,
thing.
right.
And that's just the premise that we ran from. So from there, we started talking about what we call the ABCs
Mhm.
of the reasons that things that should make you want to have to rethink
Yeah.
or reevaluate your marriage
Modify.
relationship. Yeah.
Mhm.
So when we say reevaluate, rethink
Yeah.
your marriage relationship, we're not saying leave it.
No, that's not what we're saying.
We're not saying abandon it.
Mm-mm.
We're not saying any of those things. What we're saying is exactly what we're saying. Reevaluate it, rethink it, look at what's there
Mhm.
so you can come
And-
up with a different game plan.
Right. Look at how you've been handling things,
Right.
and look at what you've been putting in. If you've only been giving 80%, then each of you should be giving 100%, which
Right.
means that you've got to make some
Right.
adjustments and put some other things aside.
Right.
So,
It's interesting that you say that, which is
Mhm.
actually we can't run down that rabbit trail too much, but we have to look at our relationships to see if they're equitable.
yeah, that's good.
So one of the topics that come up, I know when I'm talking to men a lot, they say it should be 50-50,
Mm-mm.
right? And I totally disagree with that. So when they're
Right.
saying 50-50, they're talking about bills and things like that.
Mm.
So I mean, if I make more money, then I should be putting more in so our
Mhm.
living can be proportionate to what I make. And if she
Mhm.
makes more, which she
Mhm.
has at times during our relationship, our marriage,
Put more
then
in.
she would give more.
Because
So
it's 100,
you got
100.
right. So it's what you have,
Mm-hmm.
100, 100,
And it-
equitable.
Right, and it's the ingredient that works for your household.
Right,
You know,
right.
if you choose to have your wife stay home or the husband stays home, whatever
That's
works
yours.
for your
Yes,
family,
Yes.
as long as you all are in agreement
Right.
with it.
That's how you define equitable,
Mm-hmm.
right? If not, then the relationship becomes what I call parasitic,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then it's one side, and then that's when you start to get these tensions.
Exactly.
But I don't
Which
wanna
we're
run down
talking.
there. Yeah.
Well, it actually takes us to what we're talking about tonight.
Right.
The ABCs, as we told you, ABCs indicate that, when there is AB, which is abuse, or C, cheating, it's time to do some pruning. It's time to modify. It's time to create space or bring some light to the situation.
Right.
And that light could be within yourself, where
Right.
you look at yourself to see, which we were just
Right.
saying. So, and you want to
So-
tell a little bit new
So
about
let's
what we.
let's kind of pull out that light piece a little bit,
Okay.
because that's where people can we want to make sure no one puts themselves in danger.
Right.
So
That's good.
If you're in a relationship, we talked about some types of abuse. We talked
Mhm.
about physical abuse. We talked about mental abuse, which
Mhm.
is that overshadowing, and I think we'll get
Yeah.
into that a little bit more today. We talked about verbal abuse, which are the
Mhm.
toxic words. We talked about that self-abuse, where relationships may have been already split, but you hold yourself to that old relationship, so now you're paralyzing
Right.
yourself in place, and your life can't move on.
Yeah.
And we talked about abuse with
Mhm.
drugs, alcohol, sexual abuse,
Any type of
gambling,
abuse.
any of those things.
Anything
like
used outside of its normal
Right.
ability or what is not agreed
Right.
upon.
that. So what we said basically is when those ABCs show up, the way that you have to deal with those ABCs so that you don't abort your own purpose,
Mhm.
which God's holding you responsible for,
Right.
is that you have to bring light to them.
Yes.
So we said that there's two ways that you can bring light to them. So I said all that to say this. If you find yourself in an abusive or a verbally a physically or verbally or mentally abusive relationship,
Mm-hmm.
that means
Hi, Ann.
that means that there's a potential for you
Hi,
to
Mo.
be in danger,
Right.
right? So if you bring light to that abuse, it may have to start internally first.
it should always start internally.
Right.
Too, so that you're aware of what's happening.
So make
you
yourself
know?
aware of what's happening and be realistic with
Right.
that awareness.
Right.
And measuring
Hi, Dawn.
that
Yummy.
against you, how you value yourself.
Right.
You know, so that's the first step in that. You may not get the chance to bring light to that externally.
Right.
You may have to take an action before you even make
Bring
bring light to it
Because
externally.
it could be dangerous.
You can put yourself in danger.
Put yourself in danger.
So be wise.
Very wise.
Be wise, and you know, think about that. So that's why we said that you are going to want to look for some external help.
Trusted,
Yes.
neutral
Yes.
confidants.
Yes.
People that you know who aren't out to get anything from you.
Right.
Or people who are not one-sided. And I know that sometimes we are quick to run to people that we
Yeah,
know.
we're comfortable with.
Right. And unfortunately, that might not work for your mate.
Right. We call them irresponsible confidants.
Irresponsible confidants.
So they love you and they want the best for you right now.
Right.
But they may not have the wherewithal to look into your future, into tomorrow, to give you advice,
To mentor
yes,
the marriage.
to help you move forward. So that happens with someone who's not as comfortable or familiar with you or your spouse.
Right. You need that
know.
neutral person.
And
And we told you that we went to somebody who
Brother
he
John.
didn't know either of us.
Mhm.
We were in Life Center
Yeah.
in Pennsylvania, and he didn't know either of us.
Mhm.
And that's who we went to when
Right.
we needed to work through some things that was happening
Right.
in our relationship.
And I think that was Saturday on our relaunch, and I shared
Yeah,
with you
we
that
shared
I
it.
was resistant to that. You
Mhm.
know, as a man, I don't want no man telling me what to do with my wife, man. Right? So I had an issue with that. So he perceived that issue, but I was telling Kim afterwards
Yeah, we talked
that
afterwards.
I was thinking back on those conversations that we had with John. He never said anything about our marriage.
Not one time.
He never gave us any what to do with our marriage. He talked to me about me
Yeah.
because I was my poser. I was my problem. You know what I mean? You know?
He talked with him about him, but he gave us both something that we could look into and listen to,
Right.
so that we could evaluate and check ourselves.
Right.
He actually was that person that shone the light, or
Right.
gave us a light to look into ourselves.
So
So-
scripturally, what he was, we gave you that one
Ah,
scripture. It was Matthew 19, 1 through 12. I think it was, no, it wasn't Matthew 19. Was that the one? No. It was, is that the one? Which one was it? It was the scripture where the vineyard keeper,
okay.
and the vineyard owner and the vineyard keeper said, let me give it another year,
Mhm.
and let me dig up the
Yeah.
dirt around the
Yeah.
tree and put some dung in
Yeah.
there so we can get the fruit to grow. So John was the dung.
Mm-hmm.
He was that external thing that was put in our soil to enrich it.
Good fertilizer for
Yes.
our lives. And
Yes.
he gave us some things that we could look at, and we could just apply.
Yes,
And
yes.
so that's,
But we
Yeah.
had to choose
we had to do
whether we were going to receive
Right.
those nutrients
Right.
or not. And that is key for all of you.
That's key.
That's key. So that was kind of what we talked about so far.
Mhm. We just wanted to catch you guys up before we move on. As Newt said earlier, until the Lord says move on, we're going to stay here. There are so many. I've gotten several inbox messages. And so the reason why we're going to stay here is because we just know that God is saying this is what we need to do.
Right.
So if it gets a bit much and you've heard it enough, I understand. It's okay. But there's an audience who needs to hear this, and we're going to stay right here until the Lord says differently.
Right. Plus, we're seeing an increase, just looking at Facebook and different things, an increase of reports of physical abuse. Spouses being killed by other spouses.
And we're going to
things
really
of that
get
sort.
into that on Saturday. And on Saturday, we're going to have a licensed counselor with us.
Yeah.
So for the relaunch. So for those of you, if you know someone in a situation and they can't speak about it,
Right.
just give them the page for the relaunch. There will be a counselor there.
Mhm.
This person, her name is Walanda Johnson. She's one of my little sisters, but she will be here, and she has resources to share.
Right.
So
resources.
okay, so we need to get into this, but thank you guys for coming in. I see you guys joining. Hello, and thank you so much. Please share. There are so many lives that have been in danger just in this season alone. so many divorces just in this season alone.
Right.
And we talked about the reason is maybe you may not know each other.
Right.
You're stuck in the house. That's a stressor, right? You know.
But not for me. I'm not stressed.
Well, I mean, for some
I just want
people,
to make it plain. I'm not stressed.
Right.
Right. Y'all trying to get me in trouble.
no. I'm not stressed either because I love being in the house. And we had it's interesting because God had already shifted me home
Right.
before this whole thing happened. So I just know He just was setting some things in place.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, we're going to focus on the mental and
The
verbal
mental and verbal
abuse
abuse,
of
right,
the toxic. Of how relationships become toxic
Right,
too, you
right,
know, because
right.
sometimes they don't start that way,
Right.
but they can turn that way just depending upon the stressors and the things that are there.
So real quickly, just to review, remember the mental abuse.
It's there.
We said was it's okay. It's a hostile situation.
Mhm.
Hostile situation is being created in the home where there's no peace. It's kind of as if a partner is being harassed by the other,
Right.
more by their presence, kind of like a lurking presence, always there, always watching, judgmental of everything, you know, in their body language, in their language, just things like that. Those small, I'm gonna say, unspoken conversations and rules and insinuations that happen between that husband and that wife. And it's very dangerous, we feel, because no one will ever see it. That's something that's happened internally, almost soulistic between the two,
Right.
where it's a type of oppression almost, holding them down wherever they go.
I wouldn't even say almost, baby. It really is. It's
Okay.
oppression, you know.
So wherever they go and whatever they do, they're looking to see what that spouse is
Second
going to do.
guessing
Yes.
themselves, thinking, walking on eggshells is
Right.
another word that you might
Right. So it
Be a little
makes
familiar with.
makes you question your identity that God has already formed you and ordained you with before you were in your mother's womb. While you were in your mother's womb. So it's making you question what God said about you.
Right.
So that's why that mental abuse is very, very
Right, Jim.
dangerous.
Exactly. The other one is verbal abuse, and that's where the situation is hostile. It's very similar. Nonetheless, the verbal abuse it's a noisy situation where it even causes you not to be able to think.
Yeah.
You can't think. We're going to share what are the best ways to handle this situation, and we're going to share it. We have some keys.
So
and
we need to
tools.
say this about the verbal abuse.
Go ahead.
We need to say verbal abuse is dangerous because life, the power of life and death is in your tongue. And I'll say this every time.
Yes.
I don't care whether you're saved, unsaved, filled
Right.
or unfilled. You're made in God's image and in His likeness, which means you can do what God can do. You can do it how God can do it. That's how He designed and created all of us. So I know some of us are super religious people don't like that, but that's what the word says.
And it's witchcraft.
Right. So what you speak, you bring to life.
Yes.
So that verbal abuse, what you're speaking, you're growing, and that's the atmosphere in that household. That's what's alive in there.
It's a toxic way to communicate. And since that's happening, then what ends up happening is because you're hearing those toxic words, you start to believe them.
Right.
And then you become just as toxic from the inside out.
Right.
It's a toxic situation. It's dangerous to any relationship.
Right.
Any relationship. Toxic behavior. I want to just talk about what toxic behavior
Yes,
is.
please.
So if it looks like this, if there's blaming, constantly blaming, it's your fault. It's someone's fault. You did this. If I wouldn't have just think about Adam in the very beginning, that woman you gave me, although his was lightweight because it was just he and Eve. Imagine that situation. Well, that situation is times 100, where everything you do, it's everything that's done, it's your fault. Anything that's wrong, that's blaming. Then there's defensiveness, where sometimes it's what becomes of you because you're so used to protecting yourself. You then start to be defensive and you start blaming. So you see, these things go hand in hand. This person's blaming you, you get on the defense. Then you start blaming them, they're on the defense. So it just goes around like a circle.
Right.
The next thing is disrespectful speaking or even looking at you as if they have ill feelings or ill will towards you.
Right.
This is toxic.
Right.
This is toxic.
Right.
Stonewalling, or resisting what you have to say. Like what you say has no value. It is not important. Those are toxic relationships.
Yes.
Those things are toxic.
Right. So we have our definition of what that toxic relationship looks like. We have set up basically where we're going and told you about that verbal and that mental abuse. So I think, are we going to go ahead and take a break
I think
right
we're
now?
just going to go ahead with it. We're going to go with
You're
it.
going to go with. So I know Amy Smith put in the comments. She asked you, so what's the best way to handle that type of situation? I'm not exactly sure which type of situation we're talking about, Amy, but I know we're going to talk about all of them. So if you want to put back in the chat which one specifically, which one you're talking about, we'll make sure we address that. But
I think she was talking about the verbal or
it has to be verbal,
mental.
That's
Yeah,
but
but we have our what we call the 4 R's that we're going to show a mini video of. Nonetheless, just keep in mind that when the 4 R's, when we're playing it, it has to work when both people are participants.
Right.
Outside of that, we're going to share some other things that you can do if the situation is one-sided, where
Right.
you want to talk correctly. However, those things are coming at you the wrong way. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So let's.
Before, we're not doing the video now, right?
No,
Okay.
no, it would have been the music, but we're going to go on. Okay. So we're going to go on. I'm going to go ahead with why there are disagreements. What is the thing behind disagreements? Why is it that couples disagree? And I know Newt is going to send a video to our.
Yeah, I think it was on the. I
yes.
might have emailed you late. I'm talking to our producer lady. Right? It should be on the Word file.
It'll say mini video 4 R's.
In segment 3. Got
okay,
it?
there
Okay,
we go.
we're good to
All
go.
right, thank you. Sorry, guys.
That's my fault. I came too late.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about why couples disagree, and just keep your mind open in this, because you have to find yourself too.
Yeah.
So here's the light.
Right.
Here's the light. Couples disagree. One thing I put down is because they have feelings about things they like or dislike.
Right.
Something they don't like about that you do or you say. Something that you do that they don't like, or something they do that you don't like.
Can I jump in right quick?
Yes, please jump in.
When we before we got married, Kim and I got married pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Before we got married, there was a gentleman. I'm gonna go ahead and say his name because I know he doesn't mind. James Smith,
Mm-hmm.
Elder James. So he was the pastor of a church
Mm-hmm.
that we went to. And when I moved from one city to another, I lived in his house for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
So he knew we were about to get married and was on his back porch. And he said to me, he said, so what are the things you don't like about Kim that you won't be able to deal with?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I was a little offended that he was asking me that. He saw it in my mind, but he had the wisdom to know that those things would continue to grow
Right.
unless I knew how to communicate with her
Mm-hmm.
or adjust to deal with them, because they were just a part of her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that when she said things we don't like or dislike about each other,
Mhm.
we don't usually want to go there in our relationships.
But it's a truth.
It's a truth.
It's
Right.
a truth.
Right.
You love the person, and in the beginning you kind of overlook those things, or you're just like, oh, he didn't mean.
Yeah.
And that's okay to say that you don't think he meant it that way, but it's not okay to pretend that it did not happen.
Okay.
You still have to acknowledge that it happened.
Right.
So, those are the same things that I was questioning. What is it about him that I'm concerned with? What are those issues? Those exact same things.
And
So-
of course, there wasn't none.
Oh yeah, right. He wants to be right, Wubby. He wants to be right.
She would all up on me.
I was all up on him. OMG. So anyway, the next one are another reason why people have disagreements is expectations.
Woo!
We put these expectations on people that
Yes.
they're going to come in and swoop us up and save the day. Like, here I come to save the. No, he cannot be that hero. He's not going to be. She will not be the hero for you. She's not going to be that. She's not perfect. She's human. He's not going to be that. He's not perfect. He is human. So we have to make sure that you don't put expectations on them that they are unable to carry, especially us women. Or unwilling. Women, because of the relationships that we've had with our fathers or the lack thereof. When we get someone who comes into the relationship with us and they want to marry us and they love us and they want to give us a nice house, our ring is beautiful, they want to give us this great wedding and all this stuff, we overlook the fact that there are still issues there.
Right.
We want them to be our father. Go ahead, babe.
So,
Hi, Kim.
write this down. Write this down, you guys.
In your launch pad.
Yeah, in your launch pad. I got it. She's pointing to it, so I got to show you my launch pad. in my launch pad. Write this down in your launch pad.
Please make sure you take notes. Hi, Shauna.
So, disappointments
Mm-hmm.
are
Oh,
the
yeah.
child of misplaced expectations.
Yeah, we learned that from one of our mentors. He doesn't know he's our mentor.
Now, disappointment is the child of
Mhm.
misplaced expectations.
Yes, it is.
When you don't place those expectations correctly,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be
You're
disappointed.
going to be disappointed, and disappointment causes frustration, and who knows, it just snowballs.
Right.
The next thing is opinions. The reason why couples disagree, we all got our opinions.
Yeah.
You know, and we become open
Right.
and vulnerable, and we share them. And then when that person doesn't like what we say,
Mhm.
then we have an opinion about them. So,
That's you.
so opinions are another reason why we have disagreements.
But let's take it back
Go
to the
ahead.
word. Let's take it back to the word, the purpose of Adam and Eve, of male man and female man.
Mhm.
A female man was put there to make sure that male man could accomplish what God had him to accomplish.
Mhm.
So both of their opinion was important.
Yes.
Right? So I have to learn to receive,
Mhm.
but it's tough for me because I'm not built to be a receiver.
Mhm.
I'm built to be a giver, a depositor.
Keep that in mind,
Right.
because women are incubators.
Exactly. So I have to train myself to
Mhm.
think when Kim is talking, if she said something
Mhm.
about this, first of all, she's nurtured that idea.
Mhm.
She's thought about it and
Exactly.
developed it. So I have to train myself to receive it
Mhm.
so that we are helping each other
That's
accomplish
exactly.
what we're supposed to accomplish. So opinions are
Mhm.
healthy. We need to have other separate opinions and put them on the table, but we learn how to synergize them
Exactly.
to work together.
You got to communicate, definitely. And women, because we are incubators, everything that's said, we kind of put it in and we nurture it. We keep it and we pull it out when we're ready to deliver, depending on what that is. And many times we deliver at the wrong time. We deliver it when it's not supposed to be delivered. You know, we misconstrue things. So, and it's all based upon how we hold things. Another thing that causes disagreement is changes, where you can't, it's difficult to handle changes.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to shift with the change. Like right now, look what's happening.
Yeah.
You know, we're dealing with this pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, and you're in your home.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the changes that maybe you're not working,
Right.
maybe the income, money's not coming in, and that's another stressor. Finances, lack of money.
So, but change, we got to
Go ahead.
change and time are two things that we cannot control.
Mm-hmm.
So change is inevitable. It's going to happen.
Mhm.
It says in Ecclesiastes, there's a time
Exactly.
for everything. So it's going to
It's
happen.
going to happen.
Right. So we have to view change as opportunity.
Yeah.
So
It is.
God
That's
places change there because we're moving into what's next that we're
Mhm.
supposed to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so important that you
Mhm.
keep. I understand the purpose of Kim and my purpose in her life is for us to enhance each other and what we do together.
Right. Right. That's good. That was good. The next one is fear. When you're afraid of something's going to happen, that
Mhm.
causes disagreement. It
Mhm.
causes stress, and many times people argue over things like that.
Right,
You know,
right.
when you're unsure of what direction you're going in, that's
Right.
fear.
Right.
Doubt. And keep in mind, these are all the things that the enemy uses against you.
Right. Right. Right.
Doubt is another thing where you don't believe in your spouse, you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe in either of your abilities to accomplish things.
Right.
That causes disagreements.
And that could stem from your childhood.
Yes.
That can stem from the one that I interrupted Kim when she was talking about finances or lack of money.
Mhm.
So if we don't have the resources to do what we think we want to do,
Mhm.
then we begin to doubt each
Yeah,
other or
yeah.
doubt our reasons. You know, so
And doubt God.
Right, doubt God. So doubt is not something that God wants us to walk in.
Mm-mm.
Because we are in his image and his likeness.
Mhm.
So whatever it is that we want to create or innovate, it's already in us to do that. We don't
Mhm.
see it unless we're supposed to be it.
Right.
So we really have to resist that and to work together.
Mm-hmm.
I really have to be transparent. Just the other day, I was telling Mike, Kim, I don't feel like I'm doing anything, you know, and then what she was able to do as an incubator she was able to speak into me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, she didn't lay her hands on me and hot on the Sunday and all that stuff.
But I can.
She just talked to me and she said this, that, the other, you know, and you know, later on that evening, I was able to digest that,
Mhm.
and that doubt kind of subsided.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what we do for each other. So that's really a blessing when you have a partner. Another one is stress. You know, health. Health
Right.
can cause disagreements. You
Right.
know, home life, family issues, those things. And one of the biggest ones that I would say are pressures.
What you mean?
feeling responsible for things that you're unable to maintain.
Ooh.
Those pressures are on you to take care of everything.
Yeah.
Men carry these pressures when they are in the household. Women, when men are out of the household, they carry the majority of it. But pressures, just the responsibility to take care of everything.
Yes.
And you're trying to juggle it all.
Yes.
And that pressure brings stress.
Yes.
It oh my goodness, that's
Yes.
one of the hugest ones for me,
Right.
that we have to be very careful not to take on things that are not our responsibility.
Right. I'll give you a quick example that you wouldn't even think of, I don't think. So we're both in our 50s, so I'm thinking retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, okay, so what is in our portfolios?
Mhm.
Are we going to have that $1 million
Right.
that we need? So when we're done and can't work, you know, when we're like 95 and not
Mhm.
able to work because we're
Mhm.
going to be young for a long time, right? You know, will we have the resources to be able to live comfortably
Right.
and not have to depend on anyone? So those things kind of are stressors to me,
Mhm.
which shouldn't even be stressors, because he's telling me, listen, take no thought for my food or the clothes what
Mhm.
tomorrow will bring. You know, just move forward. You know, I'll put things in place for you.
Right.
But nevertheless, those are
Those
things
are
that
definite.
can cause disagreements.
Mhm. And unfortunately, those disagreements you're not able to disagree the right way.
Right.
So like I was talking to Newt about what happens with relationships.
Yeah.
Many times those disagreements are unhealthy.
Mhm.
There is a healthy way to
Right.
disagree.
Right.
But there's also an unhealthy way to disagree. There's a way to fight fair. There's a way to agree to disagree, because you're
Right.
not going to agree on everything, but you have to agree that you're going to be okay with it not being your way.
Mhm, mhm.
You know, you have to be okay with that.
Right. Right.
Now, keep in mind, we're talking about relationships with both parties are willing. When both parties are willing.
Right.
Okay.
Right. There was actually, and I can't find it right now. Oh, there it is. Proverbs 13:10.
Oh.
Proverbs 13:10 says that an arrogant know-it-all
Mm,
stirs up discord.
yeah.
But then it says wise men and women listen to each other's counsel.
Mhm.
So that disagreement, wise men and women, they listen to each other. So sometimes there's a difference of opinion
Mhm.
that happens, but you have to listen because there's something in there that I can grow from.
That's right, and something that I can grow from. Now,
Right.
listen, we're reading from the Message Bible,
Right,
so
right,
we
right.
love the Message Bible, which is so self-explanatory.
So we came up with some 4 R's. Is that what you want to talk about now?
Go ahead.
Okay. So Kim already said, you know, we really didn't learn how to disagree, many of us, especially
Mhm.
if you grew up in a socioeconomically distressed community.
Mhm.
We didn't learn to disagree.
learned how to fight.
You learned how to fight. You know, it was
With
fight
your
or flight.
words and your hands.
In your hands,
Mhm.
right? You learn how to hold your own. If I don't hold my own, they're gonna take it from me.
Right.
And that's, some things need to be taken from us,
Mhm.
you know, really. So anyway, we came up with 4 R's, and I think there's a video that we have that we did back when we were in San Diego. So we'll show you that video, and then when we come back, we'll kind of dig into them a little.
Mhm.
So Lady Rain, take it away.
One thing about keeping it real with your feelings is when you speak to your mate, it could trigger some feelings and a response from him to retaliate, or from me to retaliate, out of a defense mechanism to protect yourself.
Right. So that then makes us move to the next
some
R,
reason it's
which we
repeating.
call rough. Because once you get that real response, it's going to trigger some things in you. Now you are responsible to control your reactions and your responses to that real thing that just was laid out to you. You know, no holds barred.
Absolutely. Ruff is hearing the comments from your mate and the feelings that you then start to have, and you start to pick up feelings of rejection or judgment from your childhood, feelings that can prompt some kind of negative behavior towards your mate.
Moves us to our next R, because once you get there, because this thing is worth it and you want to move forward, now you move into the third R. We call it recovery. So that recovery point, that's the point where you have to search within yourself.
Right.
And you got to find, what do you own? What is my part in this thing? Even if it's 1%, you own that 1% and you control that 1% so that you can be productive and get to a solution, a resolution, something to move us forward.
Right. Recovery is only the halfway point towards change. And yes, you're closer to where you've been from where you've been before, and acknowledging some of the old habits and things like that. But it takes time to break and to change a habit. Repairing at this recovery stage is also painful, because then you have to look at the hows and the whys and what brought you to this point. And then you have to remember to address the struggles and the pains and the hurts of the past that may not have absolutely nothing to do with your mate.
Right. So now that we've been real and we've been rough and we've done some recovering, now we get to see some results. And that's our fourth R.
Yes.
At this point, now we create an action plan.
Right.
Now I work with my partner.
Right.
So we can put some things in place, some tangible steps in place, some things I can do and she can do, so we can resolve our issue or move forward. Or if something like this comes up again, I already know how to solve it, how to move forward, because we have some steps that get us results.
Right. Results aren't always easy as we think, and they may not turn out the way we like them to, but they're one of the biggest parts of the work. Results mean that we can choose to speak, think, act, respond differently than we did before to our mate. And at this stage, believe it or not, most relationships fail because they refuse to think higher of their mate. They refuse to even think higher of themselves. And at this point in results, it's when we walk towards redemption. It's when we deem that it's worthy of another try. And it's here's when we refocus and revive the relationship.
So there you have it. We have the 4 R's of communicating in relationships. We got, what's the first one?
Real.
There you go. We got rough. And then we have
recovery.
And the fourth one is results. I'm Dr. Newton.
And I'm Kim.
And this was Marriage
Simple as Pie.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
We just messed it all up.
We kind of messed. We had our sound on over here, so we were doing something wrong. So, but we will have it posted on the video. We'll just post the video at the link itself so that you can hear.
So you heard our 4 R's. Our 4 R's. So the 4 R's: real, rough, recovery, and results. So we'll talk about each of them. But we want you to know, before we go any further, there was a young lady, Amy, who asked us kind of how would we deal with mentally abusive relationships.
What do you do in those situations?
Right.
That type of situation.
So just a couple of things really quickly. You have to look inside yourself first. You have to understand your self-worth. Because like we said, many things can be said, but we don't have to own those things.
Exactly.
So what's happening with a mentally abusive relationship is that your identity is being attacked for some type of control. So you have to know who you are and what you are so that you don't absorb that and walk in that intention.
Keep in mind, we're incubators, so sometimes we take the things in that are not ours and we cover and keep them, and then we become them. So we don't want to do that.
Right. So what one of the things that I would recommend you do just alone is to begin to to read things that say who you are.
Yeah.
And find places and times where you talk out loud to yourself, to tell yourself who you are, that you're marvelously and wonderfully made, that you're more than a conqueror, you know, that you're made in God's image and in his likeness, that you're, you know, you're the head, not the tail, above, not beneath, that you're like a tree planted by the rivers of water. Whatever you do is going to prosper. That Jeremiah 29:11, God has good thoughts for you and not, you know, bad thoughts. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can say, and you say them to yourself out loud, so that you don't. It's kind of like you create that bubble for that that mentally abusive relationship. Now that's not
verbal or mental.
Yeah, that's not doing anything to your partner. Right. But what it's doing is it's strengthening you and your girding your loins, so that you can start to become aware of who you are and aware of what's happening. I believe at that point, then you'll get more direction and know how to begin to handle the situation in a wiser way, and not in a way that's I'm going to say reactive. You'll be able to respond spiritually and physically rather than reactive. But you've got to start with those positive affirmations.
Definitely shine the light within yourself.
Yes, you've got to change who you're talking to. So that people, the other people that are talking to you are talking positive stuff and not nonsense. So if I was you, I would do this, and I was you, and talking about him or her. No, you need people that are talking about the essence of you, your spiritual being, who you are, and what it is you're meant to accomplish.
Yes.
Right. So that's part of, I believe, why some of those relationships happen. Because it pushes us into another realm where we're around more positive people and positive things, so we can accomplish what we're doing. I'm sorry to kind of get off track, but I wanted to make sure that we addressed her. So hopefully that's helpful. If you need more, you can contact us through our page, Launch with Kim and Dr. Newt, or you can contact Kim Coleman Miller, and she'll have a whole lot more wisdom than I do.
No,
but we want to kind of move back in, you guys. I'm sorry. We told you, we introduced you to the 4 R's, and this may help as well. With Amy. So one of the things about communication is it has to go both ways.
Two-way street.
It has to go both ways.
That's for effective communication.
Yes.
Because just because 2 people are talking doesn't mean they're really communicating.
Right. Which means there's a giver and a receiver.
Absolutely.
And men, we're built to be givers. So that's what we tend to do in the communication process. It's harder for us to receive than it is to give. Right? But it's not impossible. Okay.
Yeah, that's
just want to say that.
No, that's good. I'm glad that you. I'm glad that you said that. I just felt like I need to say this. Sometimes, Amy, I feel led to say this, that sometimes because a person is speaking about a situation to us, and because of our own past experiences, or how we felt about ourselves previously. Or the way that was words that were spoken to us in our childhood, that immediately, it's multiplied, and we grab everything that's in the air that's being said, and we take it and we put it on. Before you know, we have tags and bags hanging off of us. You know, so we have to be very careful. And I forget the exact scripture, but where it says where you have to basically arrest those things, bring them under subjection unto the word of God. You know, they should not be speaking outside of God's word of who you are. And if they are, then you need to bring those things to subjection.
The reason why they tag very quickly to you is it's a familiar spirit. That familiar spirit is we're all, I think it's Psalms 51 where David said we're born in sin, shapen in iniquity. So that iniquity, those secret sins, that deeper thing, it's usually a familiar spirit that has we've been trained in, which means it came from a generation before us. We don't even know we're being trained in it. So it is our reflex response. So those familiar spirits tag themselves to us easily because we accept them, because we've been trained that way. So that's why we have to untrain ourselves from the inside out. That's why I said start with those positive affirmations and begin to plant a new seed in yourself. Woo! That made me happy right there. Begin to plant a new seed in yourself. That's the kind of power that we have. I think that one was for me, actually.
That's good. That's okay. That's all right. I received that too.
Right.
Yeah.
So what were we saying? Two-way communication. Communication
Yes.
is two-way, right?
Mhm.
So before you have a discussion,
Thank you, Jesus.
because those discussions can be positive
Mhm.
and they can be negative,
Right.
depending on how much giving and taking is happening between the
Exactly.
two. So some things you might want to ask yourself before you begin that conversation
Yeah.
is, first of all, why are you angry?
Why are you angry?
Yeah.
So this is for both husbands and wives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't matter if he's the one who's fussing.
Right.
If you have any type of issue with it, then you need to ask yourself why.
Right.
Why is this so important to me?
Right.
Why am I angry?
Can I give an example?
Mhm.
So in our household, when the kids were young, and everything, we came from, again, we have a blended family,
Mhm.
and we came from two different types of upbringings. So my father was very frugal. Turn that water off. Turn that light switch off. So when you brush your teeth in my dad's house, you wet the toothbrush, you turn the water off, brush your teeth, then you rinse so I would come in the bathroom and the kids be brushing their teeth, I turn the water off. Or they would leave one room, go in the other room, I turn the light switch off or turn the TV off, because that's how I was raised,
Mhm.
right? So, and then it would cause some tension,
Mhm.
right? So the question was, why was I angry?
Why was that so
I
important?
wasn't angry because you had the water on or the lights on. I wanted you to use the water and the lights. I was angry because of how much it was going to cost,
Mhm.
right? So I was angry about the bills.
But then I beg to differ. I think he might have been concerned about the bills, but because if they needed it at that time, it wouldn't be a
Yeah, no
problem.
problem.
What I really think the issue was the fact that his father did it.
Right,
So because it's something his father did, he just repeated it.
right.
I don't even really think it was yours.
Wow.
And a lot of times we
healing
take stuff that's not ours. Think about what we were, as a child, what you were raised in, even with belief and things like that, thinking that God is this mean, evil person that's just waiting to get you.
Right.
We embrace those things because someone told us to,
right.
or because we saw it, or we were in that environment or atmosphere. That is why Newt was saying about those positive words that encourage you, that inspire you, that remind you of who God said you are.
Wow.
Those are the things we need to hear. So, and that's why I'm saying you have to ask yourself, why
Wait a
does
minute.
this bother me?
So
That the
evidently,
kids have the light on.
I didn't even know why I was angry and thought I knew why.
Why aren't you shouting?
But that's why we have to ask those questions. So the answer that I got from myself was sufficed enough that I could deal with how I was handling the issue. But I'm hearing now it was probably even deeper.
And most times it is. We don't even look, we do that surface. We go one layer, but there are so many more layers that we've got to look beyond to see what's really going on. The next thing is what I just answered.
Yes,
who are
that's
you
why.
angry with?
I think you did three of them. Why, who,
Yeah.
what,
and
why.
why exactly?
Why
we
is it making
did.
you
We
mad?
have some questions written.
So you got to do that work. You have to do that work.
Definitely.
And I would say
Talk
you
to
got to be
yourself.
honest with yourself.
Mhm.
So we have a thing called HOW.
Yes.
HOW.
Yeah.
Honest, open, and willing. You got to be honest with yourself, open to receive input, and willing to make
the change.
So I think the next thing we need to do is kind of say, well, can this issue be resolved?
That's it. And that's the thing you've got to ask yourself. Or do you even want to resolve the issue?
Right.
Because sometimes, because we're so used to arguments and we're so used to getting our way and we're so used to wanting it to be or wanting to prove someone else wrong, that we will argue even when that thing does not matter. I am an example of that because there were things that need to be a certain way. And I had these morals, things had to fit in this box. And if they did not fit in this box, then they were all wrong. If I was taught something as a child, I obeyed it. I was like I'm going to obey. This is what they said I'm going to do. And anytime it stepped outside, I would be like to 10. And my kids can tell you, but that was me. Why am I really upset? Do I want the issue resolved or do I want to be right?
As far as I was concerned, she looked good, so I was just going to get in the box.
Oh, MG. It's just a mess. But anyway, I knew that I had a problem that I could not change myself. I needed my husband to say, why is that so important to you?
I'll give you one example. The kids were eating cereal. We had just got married. It wasn't too long after getting married. But we had cereal, and the kid, it was in the middle of the day. And I think it was Lil Newt.
Why he gonna tell my
wanted
example?
Some cereal, right?
Did I give his example?
Where I was at, we eat the cereal. You want some cereal? I don't care when it is. Eat the cereal. But Kim was like, what y'all doing eating cereal? It's the middle of the day.
I cooked. There's
And I'm like,
there's
well,
lunch meat.
it's cereal. Let them eat the cereal.
It's
you
so
know?
true. I couldn't even understand
Right.
why that bothered me
Right.
so much. Because when I was a child, that's when you ate the cereal for breakfast.
Right. And I remember
so
her
was just stupid.
after I said that. So why is that a problem? I can't even eat the cereal. I remember you
Yeah, it's
paused.
like-
You just paused and looked at me. You
I
know?
didn't even know why.
You know, so they went ahead and ate their cereal.
It was, and then you know what? We all would be eating
Yeah.
cereal whenever we felt like it. But it was just the childhood upbringing.
Right,
Those
right.
things that you think you have to bring into your
Right,
relationship,
right.
they do not have to be. They don't have to come along with you.
Right.
And
So-
I actually call them unwelcomed guests.
Yeah.
You know, it's the spirit of someone else that you brought into your relationship. It's not something you two established.
Exactly, because you get to set the rules.
And these are the things that cause problems in the
those
marriage.
relationship, right? But it's
Mhm.
all about communication. So can that issue be resolved?
Right.
You know, do you even want to resolve
Right.
the issue? And then more importantly, are you looking to blame your partner?
That's
You know,
the one.
Are you looking to blame your partner?
That's the one,
and
man.
usually we blame people because we know we have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there's stuff in us.
Hi, Bernicia.
So we point that the other direction.
Mhm.
What was it called? Is it transference? Is that the term, the psychology term for it?
I think
um,
you can use that one, but the other one is I forget the word.
I'm
I
thinking
can't
that
remember the word.
Victoria will know the word.
Yeah,
right away.
Victoria will know that word that we're trying to say.
Right.
Projecting.
There you go. Projecting onto
See, when I
others.
thought about
Right.
Victoria.
So it's really yours, and you're projecting it onto others.
Our daughter saying cereal for dinner is the best. I know, Tori, but remember how mommy was like, no, I was like so hard on that. And then we all I'm telling you, we started eating cereal. We had friends
Right.
come over. They wanted a bowl of cereal. We gave it to them. So, I mean, you
So-
learn so much.
So before you begin that discussion process, kind of run in your mind
Mhm.
those series of questions,
Yeah.
because it primes your pump and gets your ground ready so that you can talk more productively
Mhm.
with your mate. And then you saw the video, but we messed up because we had our sound up. So really quickly, the 4 parts of what we call the 4 R's, which is you'll find in our book, which is coming out soon.
Mhm.
Marriage, Simple as Pie,
Mhm.
by Kim Miller and Dr. New.
Baggage
Claim is the title. It'll be available on Amazon. We'll let you know when it's available. We'll do a pre-launch so you guys can get some signed copies and things. But
So the first one was
first one,
real. It's
there you
being
go.
real. Being
Right.
real with him, being real with yourself.
Right.
Now, mind you, if your situation is one of those dangerous ones,
be careful.
then you may not be able to be verbally real with
Right.
him.
Right.
But you still need to be real with yourself to
Right.
figure out what's happening to
Yes.
you. Do you think you should stay in this situation for now? Is it unsafe?
Yeah.
What do I need to do? Should there
Yeah.
be a buffer in between until we can figure this thing out?
Do I need 2 men in the
Do
truck?
I need 2 men in the truck? Exactly.
You know?
I mean, whatever
Yeah.
you need to do
Right.
so that you stay alive.
Right.
And I'm telling you this because next week we have a video and we have a counselor that's going to be on, and we're going to be talking about a recent death
People are
of a
losing their
woman.
lives.
Just in this season. So you have to be real with yourself. Shine that light.
Yeah.
Like we
And something
you know.
about that real conversation is not always comfortable. So the real stuff comes out on the table. That's why
Yeah.
she's saying be careful.
Mhm.
So Kim will tell me about myself, or tell me what she sees or what she perceives about me in the situation, and I will for her. Those things aren't comfortable,
right.
because we see ourselves as good and packaged nicely.
That's
And-
what we think.
And we're not always packaged
We're not
nicely.
always
So you got to be able to put the real stuff on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And then and once you put that real stuff on
It's
the
a
table,
little rough.
it gets
The
rough.
conversations get rough, but
Right.
it doesn't have to be physically rough.
No,
Okay,
no.
because we ain't never had no physical rough.
No.
It doesn't have to be physically rough. What we mean by rough is it's hard for you to take it in.
Right, right.
It's hard to see yourself with wrong when you do something wrong.
Right.
That's a difficult situation to be in.
And sometimes it's hard to say.
It's hard
You know,
to say
you
too. That's good.
You know, because you're thinking, if you're like me, you're thinking 2 steps ahead. If I say this and she's gonna say that, oh, and it's gonna be another 3 hours. And da, 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 you know, and then also, but you gotta go through that rough part, because when you go through the rough part of the conversation, remember you love each other. Remember that.
Now that's
you
the
love
thing.
each other. You're partners. You're one flesh.
That's the thing.
You're enhancing each other. You're trying to get better. You got to keep that in mind.
And that should be one of the questions. Do you love each other?
Right.
Is this something you both are willing
Right.
to work out?
So you got to go through that rough
Yeah.
part of the conversation to get to the other side,
Yeah.
because it's pulling off layers.
Yes, it is.
It's
It's
exposing
pruning.
things.
It's
Yes,
the pruning
it's
that we started
exactly,
talking about last
exactly.
week. Pruning is cutting.
Right.
Cutting hurts.
Right. Now, you're not going through that rough part trying to tell the other person off and tell them a piece of
No.
your mind and trying to
All
win.
that and stuff.
You're not
No.
trying to win. There's no
Mm-mm.
winning in this
No.
one. You win together.
Yeah.
Then you move into the recovery piece.
Mhm.
So the recovery piece of the conversation is when you start trying to find solutions.
Mhm.
When, well, this makes me feel such and such when you do that.
And recovery can be painful too. Think about those of you who are athletic when you're working out. That recovery time can hurt. It's a sore time because you're recovering from the things that you felt.
Right.
So the recovery can be difficult.
Right,
And
right.
then go ahead. You want to go ahead
So
before we
that
move on to the last
so
one?
we just want to make sure that you understand that that recovery piece
Yeah.
is key.
And you
That's
have to go. And you have to go through it.
that's the piece when you start all the mess that you just put out on the table, the real
Mhm.
and rough. That's when you start organizing.
Yes, putting it in
Putting
its
it in
proper
nice,
place.
neat piles.
Throwing away what's
Right.
no longer needed in the relationship.
Right. So everything tends to make sense.
Mhm.
So I can tell you, for us, that recovery piece happens for me,
Mhm.
after maybe a day or two. It takes me a little longer to kind of organize and stuff, and then I come back with my head down, and Kim, well, whatever. So
I told you. No, I don't. I don't do that.
Yes, you
Do I,
don't.
babe? I
and,
don't.
and then the last step, which
Results.
won't mean anything unless you have those results.
Yes, you need
There's
those.
got to be some change.
If you don't have the real conversation,
Right.
that gets rough. You
Right.
don't go through the recovery.
Right.
You're not going to see any results.
So
now,
we got 2 minutes, but we want you to know that those results don't happen by accident.
Mhm.
There has to be a game plan.
Yeah.
So in your recovery piece, you're setting up and organizing things. So now you say what our game plan is.
Yeah.
We're going to take 10 minutes a day to stop and make
Yeah.
sure we hug each other,
Mhm.
kiss each other. And,
Did you give
and-
me a kiss today?
There you go.
All right.
So
get it
we're
in
going,
there,
we're
brother.
going, we're going to, whatever our game plan is, we create one
Yeah.
there, and we now have some results. So now I have something to measure. So when we
Right.
come back and talk again, we can see if there's been some difference. So the 4 R's are real, rough, recovery, and results. And I done talked too long because it's like
No, that's it.
6:59.
We just want Saturday for you to relaunch. We said we're going to have a counselor on who's going to be sharing, giving you some resources and things that you need, that you might need. You can get her phone number. She'll be on. Her name is Walanda Johnson. She's a therapist, and she's next level of the AB, of the abuse, how it goes to the point where someone loses their life. So that's
I know we got 30 seconds. Can I say something to the brothers? Proverbs 5:18 and 20. It says, enjoy your wife, the wife you married as a young man. Never take her love for granted.
Yes.
Then it says, why would you trade something that's so priceless and unduplicable, right, for something that's common and of no value? So I just want to lay that out there as you work on your communication.
And women, Proverbs 12:4 says, a holy wife invigorates her husband.
Yeah, boy.
But a frigid woman is cancer in the bones. So please make sure that you are.
There's some interaction.
Yes.
You're talking.
Okay, that is our launch for tonight. We thank you. Go on praise.net and
Praise.fm. Right.
And yes, join the page. We love you guys. Thank you. And we'll see you next week. We'll see you Saturday.
What does it mean to be saved? Is it more than